Hello and welcome. Today I'm going to take a look at the preview patch notes that they posted well on March the 11th, as you can see here. Um, if you're looking for sort of a general overview, or if you're interested in the balance changes, then you can probably check out other content creators. I know Spirit of the Law did one, and I assume like the major streamers and pro players will have done those. That would be a good place for balance stuff, especially. I'm going to focus on what's relevant specifically for random map scripting. Like this video is going to be specifically for map scripters to show what I think are the new cool features that we're going to be getting, and how this is, in my opinion, probably the biggest update to the game since the release of DE, at least in terms of like content for map makers. So right away we can start out with this image. We can already see some nice forest autumn trees that are new. We have the regional castle skins, we have regional monk skins, we have the cherry blossom trees, and some more trees here, but we'll see better screenshots going forward. So yeah, they're basically, this update is going to come out in April, or probably, or their target is mid-April. It's going to be the end of April, realistically, or even May. But it's worth the wait. There's a bunch of cool stuff. So let's just zoom through a bit. Stability and performance. No need to change anything there. Garrison UI. I have read through it before. I'm just gonna check if there's anything that I want to highlight relevant for map scripting. Alright, we can start out with the castle variants. This is nice, and you'll be able to use set facet, as you can do currently, to... Actually, will you be able to use set facet? I think if you set the civilization, you'll be able to use different castles. I'm not sure you can cycle through castle styles with a facet. That not. But it'll definitely add more variety here. The unique visuals are just going to be, they're going to be new graphics. It'll be in the game data. It will refer to a different file. That doesn't change anything for map scripting as such. You can certainly, use these appearances. You can, if you change the appearance of something to use different graphics, you'll also be able to do that in the map now with any of these new ones. Okay, yeah, these are basically all the regional skins. These are also regional skins. Attack animation synchronization. This is just a visual change as well, with idle animations too. So yeah, if you're modding like unit graphics, this is huge. For map scripting, less so. Similarly, the tech tree changes are sort of good quality of life for playing the game. Doesn't matter here. Consistent wording, fixes. Alright. The editors button is now in the main menu. That's actually like the first relevant thing for map scripting, right? You don't have to go through as many menus to get to the scenario editor. That's good. Then bridges and bridge pieces are now visible from the start when the map is explored. That's nice. We'll see if that also applies to stuff like the neutral docks that I've placed on some maps, because I was having to manually explore those for players. Bridges and bridge pieces now are shallows instead of Gaia on the minimap. That's also quite nice for maps that are using bridges. And there are a few map scripts that do that. Clearance size of boars and iron boars reduced to the same as elephants. So it's preventing stuff from spawning in tiles that are adjacent. Huh. I did not know that, but it's surely good that it's fixed. The revealed area around the monument is bigger. That is good because it was fairly small. Rock terrain is now even on all sides. I thought it was already even. Maybe this means it's circular. I think that's unlikely. I think Perhaps it was like one tile more on like the left side versus the right side or something, and this has now been addressed. It's presumably something like that. Um, this is a big one. So the fishing ships will be able to gather from oysters without needing antiquity mode once this patch drops. So you can basically use oysters freely as a water gold source going forward without any worry about that. It will be playable in the base game without needing to select antiquity mode. You'll still need to do antiquity mode if you want to get wood from trade and use the antiquity civilizations. Right, fixes. Is any of this? There's some, a bunch of niche things that have been fixed. And to highlight the campaigns, we're going to skip. The balance changes we will mostly skip as well. Possibly trade cards and trade cogs will be a bit more viable in Castle Age. Well, they are more viable. They might still not be viable overall, but also the fact that transport ships will start immediately with 20 pop space could be relevant for whether or not you want to start players with a transport ship on a water map, maybe. Yeah, and then of course all the infantry changes and the civilization changes. Alright, so there'll be some new units, of course. We'll have to wait and see exactly what the stats on all these are. There's some screenshots that show us some, but basically there are a couple new regional units from the Chinese split, and that will be given to these Eastern civilizations. So we'll have Fire Lancers, Rocket Carts, Loot ones. I believe that's like an Onager replacement. Yeah, it's the Hawacha, isn't it? And Dragon ships. It's basically the Imperial fire ship. Techs. Or one of these. Maybe the Loot one was a ship. The rocket cart is the Hawacha, and this is the cannon galleon equivalent. I think there was a bit more about it somewhere. Like, yeah, Koreans get the Fire Lancers, this is a shock infantry unit, and I guess this is the mangonel replacement. So the Loot one was actually the cannon galleon. Okay. Chronicles. Skip all of that. It's good that all the great campaigns are being fixed. Okay, so we get 3 new official maps: Fortified Clearing, a Glade, and a real-world map, Great Wall. Now, what's not mentioned, but what would be nice eventually, would be the option to make custom real-world maps, sort of like the Zip Random maps, or possible user patch. But I have no indication that that's going to be a thing yet. So we'll focus on these two. And Fortified Clearing, I've made tournament versions of this for NAC. Maybe for something else as well. There are a couple different versions. It's sort of like arena towards the inside, but then you also have the outside, which is probably wallable in this version. And then the map can bug out if you put too many players on too small a size, so we'll see how it works in practice. And we'll see Glade, I don't think I've seen played, but you can look at the mini-map here, see what it looks like. It's good that we're getting new maps, even if it's only a few. And then also there's 7 quick start map variations. This is basically the 9 villager start. It's 6 additional villagers, so a total of 9, or more if you're Chinese or Mayans. And I think Cruzini is working more heavily on AoE2 stuff, probably, and is maybe the person behind this. We'll see when we actually look at the map scripts. But I would guess it's possible that he's been involved in this stuff. He was also asking about additional animals that we might want to see in the game. He asked about that like half a year or a year ago. And I think some of the animals that we'll talk about later are the genesis of that. So yeah, Arabia Arena, Black Forest. These are all, the most popular maps. Add in Nomad as well. And then I guess this is just the two new maps. They come with support for Nineville Start. And Runestones is basically Arabia again. So, quick start. Presumably you can select it in the lobby as an alternative. Well, I guess it'll just be a different map. It'll be listed as a different map, not as a lobby setting. So you'll have to probably specifically, type in QS in the search bar or scroll to the bottom. Could be interesting to see that added to more, or to see it added as a lobby setting. Maybe. It's definitely taken a hold as a thing that happens in a lot of tournaments these days with the Nineville start. So, map balance. Forest distances are more equal. Player forests are made larger. Forests, alright. Resources generate more unpredictably and naturally. This is good. So Arabia was a bit too standardish, I'd say. Neutral resources generate more towards the center, i.e. they probably avoid getting stuck right at the edge of the map or in the corners. That's better for balance, since then there'll be less, more of the resources can actually be contested reliably. Spawn distance between players and general location is more varied. So I wonder if this means that the circle placement, circle radius, has been removed again from Arabia, or if it's been kept but variance has been added. I think for two players you don't really need to have you don't need circular placement at all on Arabia, honestly, of all maps. But this is a very welcome change that you can't just use the circle, like the mini map circle, to scout. So huntable animals spawn just have a bigger variance. They can be one tile further away, 3 tiles closer. This is to address the fact that deer pushing is too standard, so there's a bit more variation here, and there's another change later that we'll get to in that regard. And yeah, well, there's this chance, which also addresses it. They can generate in groups of 2 and 4 instead of only 3. Now, the traditional AOC amount was 3 or 4 deer at random, and now it can be 2 to 4. So you could end up with fewer deer, meaning that you need to scout them and you might need to adjust your build a bit. Relics, yeah, this is good because this one relic that was in the dead center would then get, like on runestones, would then get deleted by a monument in King of the Hill, for example. I reported that a while ago. Relic scale, that's good. I'll have to take a look at what the relic scaling is. Although we have to remember, these are all changes for Arabia, which is Drazini's Arabia at this point, from King of the Desert, I think. Extreme elevation, which is more representative of the legacy map. I'm interested to see how that's implemented. Because the legacy map did have, huge elevated plateaus, but that's very difficult to do fairly. And this thing with the unpushable huntable animals, basically they've added some more animals, which we'll get to, but chickens were one of them, like wild chickens, that basically there's small hunt and you won't be able to push them. So this is also an attempt to address pushing deer. And more map themes. And this is one thing where I'd say, this, honestly, it shouldn't be called Arabia, it should be called, open land map. That's a bit too generic, but like plains, or I don't know, something like that. Just a very generic name, because Arabia really does imply certain themes that aren't snowy or jungle or so on. Anyway, arena, scaling various themes, walls only towards the center. That's so you don't have to delete the back walls. Yeah, the new huntable animals as well, and more of them. This is a good change. Elevation to the outside forests. Sure, why not? I mean, I think Arena was basically flat before, wasn't it? Or mostly. Or completely. Completely, I think the Arena was completely flat. Alright, that's all fine. Okay, so Black Forest doesn't have as many secret resource pockets. Um, and it will give a pond for all players. I want to see how that's implemented. This suggests to me that the current Black Forest script has basically been scrapped and has been presumably rewritten, or someone's rewritten a new Black Forest script entirely. You wouldn't need to, but I think that's probably what's happened. Maybe even for the Arena script as well. So we'll have to take a look at the code once it's available. Forest clearings are natural looking. Don't know what that means. Maybe with some sort of like chopped trees or leaves transitioning to more leaves on the outside going to grass on the inside or something like that. Instead of clusters of 3 to 12 hostile huntable animals generating randomly across the map, all players. So basically, the wolves are now per player rather than just scattered, which is probably a good update. More variety to map themes, definitely good. All players spawn with 2 relics. That will be interesting. Does it mean that in the 2-player game you only have 4 relics? And it also means like in the 8-player game where you I don't remember what the default number of relics. It's like 8 relics or something, isn't it? I think this effectively means more relics. Just means more relics overall. Inconvertible Gaia units. I'm surprised that Fall of Rome, the Battle Royale maps even get updates. City of Lakes. Sure. That might be fixed by there was a change earlier that was mentioned about the bridges. Maybe that happens automatically. Or maybe it's been, manually coded into the map script. We'll have to see. Mega Random has a major increase in variations. That's going to warrant a video on its own once I have access to this build. Take a look at what's been done there. Like this was definitely due for happening. Mega Random at the time or currently only has like 46, I want to say, variants or map presets, map templates, let's say. Nomad can now go up to 14 villagers. Cool. Extra food resources appear on neutral lands. Also good. And the new trees and animals and water has been added. That is also good. I mean, this is what I've sort of been doing with Hyper Random. I've been keeping it up to date with new content and adding, trying to improve the spread of neutral resources. Mixing of tree types, that's nice for visual appeal. Gaia markets also visible. So I think this might just be the thing with the bridges has done that. Nomad. The land lock is back. That is good, although it's only a small chance. Like classic Nomad always had one side attached to the edge of the map, and the current Nomad doesn't do that. But for more unpredictability, I think it's good for that to be there. Even spread of resources, sure, as long as it's not too even, because then it doesn't matter where you put your TC at all. You'll always have access to the same resources as regardless of where you put your TC. So I hope it's not completely even, but overall it's probably a good change. And there were some generations where you could end up with no gold or stone on your half, basically. General shape now appears more very natural looking. Yes, more variety in map themes. 5%, so this is the map has been enlarged by 5%. That's probably good since it's a water map and historically the water maps were hard coded to be larger, although not Nomad, but I think it's a good change. Players spawn with one herdable close to one of their starting villagers. Sure, that's a good change. Relic scale good, scale according. Players are more consistently spaced across the map. That is not so easy to implement, but it's a good change to have in there. And we have our two small herdable animals, which we will definitely talk about once we see a picture of the chickens. When regular herdables are present... Oh wait, these are herdables. Herdables. Small herdables. Wait. Small herdables. We had small hunt was what we were talking about here before. Unpushable hunt. Small herdables? I didn't even... I'm gonna have to check which animals are meant. I don't recall reading that, actually. Small herdables. Alright, we'll have to keep an eye out if we can find any hints on as to what the small herdable is. Maybe there's like basically a domestic chicken and a wild chicken. That could be the easiest explanation. Spores. Sure. Yucatan has been reworked. Am I going to read everything out loud? I don't think so. It's better scaling for different map sizes. And reworking how the resources are placed. More predators. Yeah, overall, it's Yucatan's gotten an overhaul. And this, I reported this stuff that oysters were blocking fish. The oyster implementation had numerous issues on release, or pre-release even, so it's good that those are finally getting fixed. I did report all of these. This one, that's been an issue for quite a while, or for a while. Actually, I don't know if that was added with Chronicles again, but I remember reporting that one too. And reporting this one. Okay. Yeah, good changes. Now we really get to the meat of it. If you skipped the rest of it, this is the really important stuff. So we have the ability to use simple math operators, addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division, using floating point values, and then rounding to a whole number at the end. Numeric constants in RMS files are now floating point format. So it means they can handle decimals, but ultimately it still gets rounded. So you don't really need effect percent because you could type in... I don't know, because effect percent lets you take values that are smaller than 1. And it gives you more precision because you basically had 2 additional decimal points. But if you want to do something that's... I still don't see if since there's rounding that's happening anyway, I don't see how effect percent is actually obsolete. And sort of the bigger question is exactly what or how is this implemented? Now, I was thinking a bit, like, if there's an option to you work with variables, then I can see this being quite useful, where you could define something and then add to it or multiply it depending on the map size or the number of players or whatever, and then just give that output, store that as a variable, and then use that variable when you need a numeric value later. But there's no mention of variables, which makes me wonder what exactly addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, how is that implemented? What are we going to be able to do with it? Like, it has the potential to be revolutionary, but I can't quite think about. I can't quite work out how this is implemented, what it's actually going to look like in practice. Next up, we have this require path, which hasn't received as much hype, but is actually huge as well. So what it does is it ensures that player objects aren't trapped like in a pocket of forest or on a bit of a tiny strip of island or somehow separated, on the wrong side of the wall on Mishi. It makes sure that any player objects will need to have a path to the center of that land, presumably. Which honestly, you'll want to add this for nearly all player objects to prevent stuck resources. And then this integer parameter that requires the objects to have a direct line of sight to the spawn origin, that is used for addressing the case where, say, your boar is behind a wood line. Not where you can get to the boar, but then you'd have to send it all the way around, for example. And if you, with this new require path with the integer, it will need to have a clear direct line to basically your TC, so it won't be able to spawn behind an obstruction like a wood line. You'll have to be careful with that option. If there are too many things obstructing the direct path to the TC or the direct path to the land origin, then your boar might not get placed at all. But if it's used properly, this will help improve the spawn of player resources quite a bit. I think the overall required path you'll want to use everywhere. Require the direct line of sight, you'll want to use sparingly, I think. Alright, the attribute find closest now works more appropriately in conjunction with set circular placement and enable tile shuffling. That suggests to me that the issue of having objects placed at perpendicular right angles to the player will no longer be the case, I'm thinking. Or perhaps it will no longer be the case if you use set circular placement and enable tile shuffling and find close, if you use all three of those things. Because tile shuffling as such didn't do anything useful. Like, there was no point in adding it to any objects generation until now, I guess, because it didn't actually do what I just described. Essentially, it's supposed to shuffle the list of candidate tiles and not just pick, the first ones that are found. But presumably only a few candidates are actually found as the closest ones in a circle, or at least were only found as the closest ones, and that's why you had this thing of resources on the right angles. Now maybe like every single tile in the Euclidean distance, or in the circle, yeah, Euclidean is correct, I think. Every single tile on that circle will count, will go into the list of candidate tiles, and will then be shuffled. So I think actually it shouldn't break any old maps that rely on predictable placement with these two attributes, because none of them are using this attribute as well. So I think that's how this works. We'll see how it actually works, and I hope you can follow along with all of this. I don't, there is no build for me to try out at this point, so I can't demonstrate any of it. I don't know if any of what I'm saying is actually how it will work, but I'm just trying to read into it what I think will be happening. Min distance and max distance to players no longer makes objects avoid neutral lands. This is a big one. So, yeah, historically, this also applied to neutral lands, and then when DE was released, they fixed this bug, so it would no longer apply, it only applied to player lands, and then they reverted it partially. and now it seems that they are fixing it again. Overall, it's good. This will be something that you have to check for on your maps because resources might be able to spawn in locations where they previously didn't if there was a neutral land there. This also, or these two things combined, will make it much easier. Will make actor areas much less important, and will make it much easier to place resources on maps that are full of lands. Like if you create a map that's sculpted with 100 by 100 grid of lands, you'll actually be able to place resources on them normally without having them fail to spawn. So I think these are some good changes. They might require some maps to be reworked a little bit. If we move up, we have a bunch new color corrections, which is good. I had looked into modding them, but the problem is it was kind of difficult to ship a color correction file along with a mod. Basically, to mod the color correction file, you were modding it globally, and it wasn't great. It didn't work well as in a mod. But now we have a bunch new color corrections, so that's nice. Definitely have to add those to hyperrandom and pick more appropriate ones for your rainforest map. You take rainforest or something, savanna, twilight. I haven't heard of this word ever. Anyway, this is nice. Nice for visual appeal. We got several new placeholder objects. So that's good. It means we don't have to use things like a dead Constable Richmond or a dead fish trap. They're actual dedicated objects for this task now. So we have, and each of them have an on and an off grid variant. So we have one that's just generic, no terrain restrictions. We have a land one. We have a basically land, beach, and shallows one. So that's sort of like a land unit, could be on beaches and shallows. And a hybrid one, beaches, shallows, water, that's basically boat. And only water, that's basically fish. So it's good that we have proper placeholders, and they've even given us the IDs of them already, so I can start updating my documentation. Then they've added new trees, which is nice. I love it. We have bamboo, or we have like proper tall bamboo. I had a mod for this in the HD, or I was using a mod from Piscira, I think, in the HD edition to add bamboo that looks like that. Not like the tiny, small bamboo, but proper tall bamboo. Asian pine trees, those, I guess they're pines. These are peaches, they're not cherries, but best blossoming trees. This bridge object is new as well. Small bridge. Willow, and then we have maple. These are called Asian maple, but basically maple trees, they're just maples. So we have basically an autumn and a normal maple. So we have maple blossoming, we have another pine, we have proper bamboo, and we have willow trees. Willows should be close to water. Yeah. And I wonder, I don't think it's mentioned that we get new forests, but it would be nice if we got new forest terrains associated with them as well. And hopefully they're not just straggler trees. Right. New permanent stumps. So you don't, yeah, I think they're only temporary stumps for bamboo, baobab trees. Now there are permanent stump versions if you need them for your map script or scenario. And what is this? Felled tree objects. This felled tree, felled bamboo. Okay. I guess then, like, I don't need to use the pile of wood anymore. I could use a felled tree. Maybe this is also what's been used thematically to improve the Black Forest map. To have some felled trees close to the player start areas. Let's see. Then we have some rocks. To be clear, the pandas are not an animal that you can interact with. It's basically just a rock, an animated rock. Still, though, it's cute. Limestone rock, pillar rock. I love that we're getting the IDs for all of them. Then I don't have to. It'll make my life easier when I update the spreadsheet. So black bear, polar bear, Arabian wolf. And we've renamed the current bear to the brown bear and the wolf to the gray wolf. Well, that's good. So we can have a more desert appropriate wolf. We can have, a Arctic appropriate bear and just more bear variants overall. Like it's not difficult to implement, and I love getting more animal variety here. New type of herdable animal. All right, I didn't read this properly before. I basically missed out. So yeah, we're getting the herdable, basically domestic chickens in 3 variants with 65 food, and then wild chickens that are hunt that can't be pushed to the TC. So basically herdable and huntable chickens. And we have a regular huntable animal. This is basically like an eastern ibex. Argale, seems. Chicken, yep. The red-crowed crane, that's going to be similar to a stork. It's just a bird. Red-crowned crane. New neutral wild animals have been added. So, neutral wild animals. So I think it's like the basically the other horse variants, the horse gray black, like the horse heavy, the horse gray, and so on. They've all been added as wild animals. Although isn't that what they were originally? No, they were scout. They were scout animals. These won't have food on them by default, but it's still nice. They're basically just eye candy unless you do some shenanigans to give them food, but it's still nice. It's also nice that we don't need to be calling our monkeys smoke monkeys anymore, but we actually have a proper monkey unit as a wild animal, so we don't need to use Furious the monkey boy for that anymore. Same for the penguin. We actually have a wild penguin, so we don't need to modify the cheat unit. That's big, and that was asked for. Right. New male and female villagers that won't automatically start gathering resources during Empire Wars. It's basically an idle villager. I think in the existing version of Empire Wars, this is achieved by having a flag that dies and spawns a villager. So I suppose this code is made so that you can get around that you don't need to. You can just spawn this unit directly to create an idle starting unit. Temporary revealers. So we have a small, a medium, and a large revealer. That's good. I think the current map revealer is presumably it's like 6 tiles or something, or even I thought it was 4, but it's got to be like 2 or 6, given that we have this set here. Actually, no, the current revealer is permanent. Yeah, the current revealer is permanent. And the temporary revealers... Oh, I don't remember exactly. I think they're created by giving 0 HP to the permanent revealer. So it's good that we have several types of temporary map revealers. You can use that to explore the 20 tiles around the TC or to reveal a neutral market or something. Alright. Yay, we do actually get the forest terrains. I read it, but I hadn't remembered this. So lush bamboo forest, yellow shallows. Oh no, yellow shallows, yellow water, deep yellow water. I wonder what yellow water looks like. I don't think we've seen that on any of our screenshots. Maybe here, although I think that's grass terrain. Pasture. it's a terrain. But pastures are also mentioned in the balance section. This might be a new type of farm or something like that. This might be something like that for one of the new civilizations. But it also comes with the terrain, apparently. Oh yeah, definitely. Look, it has a dead. It has a different growing state. So it's some variant of a farm, like the farm and rice farm, presumably. Limestone cliffs. I think the coloration is it's going to be slight. So currently we have marble, granite, uh, and one more desert, I think. So it's good to have another cliff variation. Cool. AI stuff. We are going to AI skip over, I'd say. And modding. Oh, there's a bunch of modding stuff too. I think we do need to mention it. So there's a bunch of new resources, attributes, which I am not going to read out loud right now, but you'll be able to do a lot more with effect amount. You'll be able to change a lot of new attributes, or change additional attributes that couldn't be changed before. You'll be able to disable a unit directly. Probably. I mean, I don't know if all of these will be available as accessible to a random map script, but now you can disable a unit. If you can, then this will let you disable a unit directly rather than changing its train location to some building that doesn't exist. Mm, yeah, there's a huge amount of data changes or things that are accessible now in the data, but I don't know if all of them will be available for random app scripting, so I'm not going to read them all in detail right now. I had looked at them before. Landmine unit. String ID to display on like there's a lot of stuff that you can do now. Not all of it. Like all of this stuff I'm not sure it'll be available. Presumably the new attributes will be accessible for random map scripting, but beyond that I'm not so sure. Like tasks. Not quite so sure. Auras, modifying them. Stingers, transformation, full tech mode. Technology effects. Alright. The scenario editor can now you can do elevation up to 16. So it's possible that in the random map scripting, like create elevation will now go up to 16. Currently, you can only do it with base elevation on lands. If you can't use create elevation to go to 16, that would be a bit of a shame and an oversight since they're adding it to the scenario editor at this point. Crash fixes, scripting. All right. So I hope this video isn't horribly long, and I hope it was somewhat informative and not too much rambling on my part. If you have any questions, leave them below or chat with me on Discord. Thanks for watching. Have a good one, and hopefully this update won't be delayed too much and we'll actually get it at some point in April.